Liz, you talked a lot about the importance of seeing that connection point made from the servicing standpoint, the making sure that people understand on an ongoing basis how they can put this to work in their lives. What are some of the things that you find are providing, or do you think from your perspective, provide the best resources or advantages for the general public, the consumer who's coming in, they're getting started, they want to embrace this concept, they're working with a coach on our team, yourself or someone else on the team, and walk us through like maybe that ongoing service minded aspect of how are we actually helping people, and what do you see as some of the key advantages that they're able to participate and take advantage of once they kind of get glued into the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we have our client portal, which is a gold mine of information for the clients. We record all of our client coaching sessions. Another thing, we meet with our clients on a quarterly basis in a webinar style where people are invited to turn their cameras on, to hop in the chat box, to ask questions and engage with each other. We do breakout rooms where our clients get to chat with each other one on one about what they're doing with their system, how it's made an impact for them and their family. And I think that those connections are the community we've built is one of the biggest benefits of working with somebody on our team. We have a really great client-based community and a really great advisor community where we collectively are in this together. Um, as a more novice advisor, I rely on the support of my teammates who have been doing this for a lot longer than me, for things that maybe I haven't encountered yet. And because I always have them in my corner, the clients that we're working with have the benefit of having the knowledge of not just me, but every other advisor on this team as well. And the stories of all of the other clients that we service here as well. Those things I think make a really big impact for our clients. And of course, anytime we're able to get our clients together, whether it be for our, weekly webinars or our in-person big live events that we do, that's always what I hear over and over from clients is that's one of the favorite things that we put on for them is being able to connect them personally with other people.
I love that.
Mhm.
And if you were, because we're always describing the advantage of always be building a future that's bigger than your past, and credit to Dan Sullivan. So my question would be, so if you were to envision for a moment all of the families, the people that you've served, and it was 20 years from now, how do you want to be remembered?
Uh, that's a good question. Hopefully, I would be remembered as somebody who cared about them and was there to guide them in a different way of thinking that is going to impact their family for generations to come.
I love that. And you're not going anywhere. I'm not saying
Yeah.
suggesting anything. I'm not putting a time frame on that. It's just, it's long enough of a time frame because Nelson said it would take most people to fully control the banking function in their lives as it relates to their needs, a 20-year time frame to achieve that. And gosh, he's because Rich and I are approaching. So Rich should be approaching his 16th year, mine 17th year, and Nelson was absolutely right.
The
Yeah.
impact of helping people over a long time frame is, I mean, it's very powerful, but it's also liberating, and it's joyful. There's so many kind of great descriptors that go along with seeing and get to know people's families and watching their children grow and go through different stages of life. What what's curious, when you got started, Liz, of course, you got started, servicing people from a different vantage point before moving into an advisory role. And, I was really curious, what would you say is like what was the really key element for you that made you realize you wanted to make that switch? You wanted to go from helping people at this level to trying to go into more of a layer of, hey, I really want to get the training. I want to actually be able to do this one-on-one with clients. What was the pivot point for you?
For me, I think so. Little backstory, I always wanted to be a teacher. I actually went to university and started down that path. And every education course I took and every seminar I took in university that talked about becoming a teacher was held by a burnt out teacher who warned everybody how awful teaching is and how hard it is on you, and don't do it unless you're really going to love it. And it kind of scared me out of looking down that path further. I thought about all of the years I was going to have to continue going to school, the money I was going to have to spend. And I kind of pivoted away from that. And I ended up going and becoming an early childhood educator. So still the same path, a teaching path, but there's not a lot of money to be made in that industry. And, a girl's got to feed her family. And I, of course, just kind of started looking at a different path. And that's how I ended up at the temp agency, which led me to Nelson in this book that completely changed my life. But for me, the admin side of things was a means to an end, whereas the coaching side is kind of a passion. I always wanted to coach and teach people, and I couldn't imagine being immersed in this so deeply and not following that path, because I'm a natural teacher, I think.
And so when you think of coaching, so how in your role now as an authorized infinite banking practitioner, an advisor, a guide to clients, so what role has the coaching and mentorship that you receive here at Ascendant played in your growth as an advisor and a leader?
Oh, it's been immeasurable. I would have fell flat on my face out of this industry had I not had it. I would not have survived the first 6 months, I don't think. It's not an easy industry to work in. And the coaching and guidance that I've received has allowed me to serve people that I probably would not have been able to serve in 10 years of doing this on my own as an independent advisor.
Yeah, it's always so great to hear that, it's because an immeasurable degree of emphasis is placed on coaching and mentoring. And I know for myself and Richard, I think that I can express somewhat on his behalf, just to share how fulfilling that is. Because in the beginning of our journey, we had to travel extensively to go directly to people who had already been practicing this process for many years. And if you would have said to Richard and I then, hey, let me take you to 2025, and Ascendant is operating in the United States and Canada, and we're busier than we've ever been, I wouldn't have seen it back then. And I don't think Richard would have seen it either. But what we were super ambitious and perseverant to do was to learn and immediately identify the best people that we could find and say, we're coachable. Like we really want to absorb this and learn this. And we carried that into our Ascendant team so that we could transfer that and really compress the window of time. There was at our Elite Advisor Network that we launched officially on the 9th, when we were there in session that day, there was stories that were coming up. And one of them was from an advisor who we know, and she had been communicating, I've got a team of 6 people, but I feel like, I've sort of hit this ceiling of complexity, and it's more, I find now the days to be more energy draining than fulfilling. But by the end of that first coaching day, she was a completely different person in her thinking. And she was re-energized and very excited to explore building a future that's bigger than her past. And so I'm always excited to hear what teammates have to say about what role that coaching and mentoring has played. And for most, the answer is obvious. It's like, well, anybody would say, hey, it's had an impact. but the way that it impacts you might be different than the way that it impacts another teammate. And one of the things that really stood out for me is when you said, I'm able to work with clients in cases where I may simply have not had that degree of knowledge or confidence or courage, capability, the four
Yep.
C's, Dan Sullivan's four C's. And it's just so great to see how far you've progressed and knowing that there's still so much runway. Now I'll say this sort of in the reverse. So if you were, again, 20 years down the road and you looked back on all the lives that you've impacted, what are you most proud of?
I would say probably my own growth and path. I mean, it sounds a little bit selfish. Of course, I'm proud of all of the impact I've made on my clients' lives and their families' lives. That's a given. But my own growth in this process, in coaching people on this process, and coaching and mentoring other people one day, hopefully.